UWITV is pleased to present the inaugural Canada-Caribbean Research Symposium, which was held on February 17, 2020 at the UWI Regional Headquarters in Kingston, Jamaica.
It is my distinct pleasure and honor this morning to, on behalf of the University of the West Indies, to welcome you to the regional headquarters of the University of the West Indies. As you well know, we are at the center of a university with 50,000 students plus staff and faculty. We serve over 20 countries, and we are ranked as the #1 Caribbean university, top 2% in Latin America, and the top 4% of universities in the world, of which there are over 25,000. I want to extend a very warm and special welcome to our visitors from abroad. I emphasize the word warm. I know this is something that is well appreciated, and that's why we scheduled this conference at this time. So, in addition to the welcome, I wanted to take the opportunity to do something which Dr. Fearon and Sir Hilary Beckles are too modest to do, which is to tell you how this came about very briefly. Leadership involves vision and the ability to go after ambitious targets. In a conversation over a year ago between Dr. Fearon and Sir Hilary Beckles, talking about exchange between the university in the usual way, MOU, faculty, staff, moving, joint research, the issue came up of the very important relationship between Canada and the Caribbean. Indeed, Canada, long-standing friendship, and perhaps the most empathetic of the developed countries in supporting the Caribbean. And it was felt that at this time, the relationship could be refreshed, enhanced, and revitalized. And the way to do this was to institutionalize a research program which would be policy-oriented. And hence the idea was birthed of a Canada-Caribbean Institute. We are privileged to be here this morning at the launch of the symposium, the research symposium, as well as the launch of the Canada-Caribbean Institute. I have fulfilled my obligations as quickly as possible. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ambassador. We're really privileged, as Ambassador Bernal has said, to have with us this morning the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Jamaica, the Senator, the Honorable Kamina Johnson-Smith, an attorney at law by profession. The Minister is one of our own, having completed a Bachelor of Arts degree in French and International Relations at UWI and a Bachelor of Law degree from the Cave Hill campus in Barbados. So I'd like to invite one of our own to come and deliver to us, please, this morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, Canada and the Caribbean have indeed a long-standing relationship. Our bonds of friendship span over 2 centuries, and we both share interests and values in several global areas: security, trade and investment, resilience, climate change. It's therefore most timely that 2 such respected universities, the UWI and Brock University, have found synergies for an enduring partnership through the establishment of the Canada-Caribbean Institute. Today's symposium is undoubtedly an important step in building bridges and maximizing potential between Canadian and Caribbean academics in the areas of education, research, and data gathering. In perusing your program, of course, my attention was drawn to the session on Caribbean culture and the diaspora, the topic being of double relevance and interest to me, given not only the large Caribbean diaspora present in Canada, but of course my own ministerial portfolio responsibility for diaspora affairs. Caribbean nationals have most certainly made significant contributions to the diversity, cultural, social, and economic tapestry of Canada. And of equal importance is their abiding loyalty, philanthropy, and socio-economic contribution to the sustainable development of their home countries. Cognizant of these developments, Jamaica has formulated a national diaspora policy, which has now been approved by Cabinet for tabling in Parliament as a green paper. The policy seeks to provide foundational institutional framework for engagement with our diaspora across the globe. It further embodies the commitment of the government to the well-being of the diaspora in their countries of residence, as well as their engagement and partnership for national development. One important thematic area of the policy addresses data and information. I'm sure you will all agree that there are major gaps in our understanding of our diaspora due to largely insufficient data collection, particularly, as a matter of fact, data composition and location of our diaspora, including in Canada. This hinders policy development and strategic engagement by both public and private sectors. I use this opportunity, therefore, to encourage the Institute to explore this avenue for future collaboration. I further implore the Institute to build linkages across Canada where you can build on the Canada-Caribbean experience. And I understand from just our brief informal exchange a while ago that this is something already being contemplated across broader institutions. Able to remain with you long this morning or throughout the symposium. But in closing, allow me to once again commend both universities for the bold initiative taken to establish the Canada-Caribbean Institute. In that regard, I very much look forward to the outcome of the collaborative efforts in researching the true nature and value of the long-standing Canada-Caribbean engagement. From all indications, the discussions that will ensue today will be engaging and enlightening. So I wish you every success for the remainder of the event. Thank you.
Ambassador Bernal has given us a bit of background to this, and he foretold of the pioneers for this venture. This was a brainchild, as you know, of our two vice chancellors. And so at this point, I am going to invite our host vice chancellor, Sir Hilary Beckles, a man of vision, as you know, architect of the university's AAA strategy of access, alignment, and agility, the man who is leading the UE in fulfilling its strategic goal of revitalizing Caribbean economies and expanding our global footprint to every continent in the world, he says, excluding Greenland, but we haven't excluded it, and through strategic partnerships with many, many stakeholders, but particularly in this case, other tertiary institutions, as evidenced by the presence of Brock University with us this morning. So perhaps in anticipation of this historic development, Brock University already awarded him an honorary doctorate. So, a globally renowned advocate for reparatory justice and an ardent cricket scholar and practitioner, Sir Hilary writes plays in his spare time. I leave it at that. So please help me to welcome our Vice Chancellor, Sir Hilary Beckles, to the podium. Thank you.
This is a special moment, a moment of history, a conjuncture where we are committed as the UWI to doing the right thing. Now, many of you would have heard me say this on 100 occasions. Universities are not built to serve themselves. The finest universities in the world are universities that are funded to support the interests of their stakeholders. And this is what we are all about. And so this relationship of constructing a Canada-Caribbean engagement at the institutional level is all about service to the people of the Caribbean and building the mutual bonds between Canada and this region. Now, you've heard PVC Bernal made a statement earlier in his introduction that Canada has undoubtedly been the most consistent, historically the most reliable, and generally the most flexible of our international stakeholders as we have sought to build out this Caribbean as a nation. I've had a number of conversations with Her Excellency about the gift to this region when we federated in 1958, and the government of Canada, showing full commitment to the federation, made a donation of 2 boats to the Caribbean, the Federal Palm and the Federal Maple, and these boats were meant to create and generate movement of young people between the islands. And the students of this university back then from the Eastern Caribbean would travel home on the Federal Palm. The Jamaican students would travel across the region on the Maple, and it was a wonderful moment. It was a wonderful, in its narrow sense. When the St. Augustine campus was built, the government of Canada gave a donation to this university to build what is now called Canada Hall, which was our largest residence on the St. Augustine campus. When the KFL campus was built, later, the government of Canada gave a great grant that enabled us to build the Philip Sherlock Hall, which is also still there. And of course, the contribution to the Mona campus with the administration building. So the government of Canada has been with us, not only institutionally, this UWI, but also this region. And so this relationship has to be respected. It has to be honored. And the best way we in the Academy can do so is to establish research portfolio that focus on all of these areas of engagement, of participation, and how we have built a solid, unshakable bond between the CARICOM region and Canada. There is one area where I have told Her Excellency we have a problem. We have a problem. And here it is. Cricket. In case you're not aware of this, the West Indies cricket team was established in 1884. And Canada was very kind to invite us on our first overseas tour. So the West Indies team made its first overseas tour to Canada to learn the art of cricket. Because at that moment, the rankings in the hemisphere were US #1, Canada 2, West Indies 3, Argentina 4. So off we went to Canada in 1884, and they took advantage of us. So history will show that the first defeat of the West Indies cricket team ever was 1886. The Toronto Cricket Club hammered the West Indies team. We have not forgiven you for that. We are seeking reparations for that. But the relationship has been built upon very important pillars of trade, of investments, of the migration of labor, our nurses, our workers. And now what we are seeing is the shifting of that relationship to a higher level. And I wish, again, to repeat the important thesis of a conversation with Her Excellency. And what she said was, we've had over 200 years of building this bridge, building this bond. But now we have to move to a higher level and arguably a more sophisticated level in which development is conceived, not in traditional terms, but in new paradigms, so that the issues of science and technology will now become even more important. The issues in relation to climate change, alternative energy, renewable energies, all of these new conversations, identity and culture, and the bonds between Canada and the Caribbean at the level of identity and culture, we now need to move to those levels in addition. So this center will seek to consolidate traditional relationships, but at the same time, to conceptualize and implement new visions and new strategies to enable the sustainability element to be assured. And so we welcome President Ferron, who is indeed the architect. He is an economist. He is fully aware of the importance of the development bond between these two regions. He is a scholar of Sir Arthur Lewis, whose economic models have guided us these past 60 years. And of course, Sir Arthur was the first vice chancellor of this university, and it's all connected. But he has brought to this conversation a development vision, the way in which these two economic spaces can interact to lift each other to a higher level. And I'm looking forward tremendously to working with the president and his team. Many of our Brock scholars are here. And again, the circle is now complete. The circle is complete at a spiritual level also, because while the minister has welcomed the president as a great son of great Jamaica, I can also say to you, Minister, that the president and I have two things in common. Our disciplinary interests, of course, but we also spent some time together as youngsters, as preteens, in the diaspora of Birmingham City, where he and I grew up a little bit as teenagers in Birmingham City. So we're from two ecosystems, the Caribbean ecosystem and the diaspora ecosystems. And that is very important. And also to the final circle is we celebrate Brock University. And that is important to us in the Caribbean also, because General Brock, after whom this university was named, is also a diaspora. At the end of the 18th century, this young Brock was a bad behaved boy in England, and his parents were concerned that he wouldn't grow up, and he was taking too long to mature, and they put him on a boat and sent him to the West Indies. And he was sent to the West Indies in the army and served in the West India regiments in the West Indies in order to become a man. And then, of course, the Anglo-American War broke out, and he was able to travel from the Caribbean up to Ontario to become a hero of Canada. So while he became a hero of Canada in 1812, 1815, the fact is that he began his journey as a diaspora. So the full circle of diaspora rule comes into play. So welcome everyone, and I thoroughly hope that you enjoy this symposium, and all of you will rise in support of this institute that we are putting together. Thank you so very much.
I'm now going to invite the other partner in this relationship, President and Vice Chancellor of Brock University, Dr. Gervin Ferron, to offer his remarks. But as the Vice Chancellor said, he was born in Birmingham of Jamaican parents, and he moved to Canada, I guess, opportunities, and he's certainly taken full advantage of the opportunities. In addition to his distinguished career as an academic, he has had senior leadership positions in universities in Canada, rising to President and Vice Chancellor of Brandon University, and now President of Brock University since 2017. So in addition to academia, President Ferron has contributed in the public policy sphere, working with the Ontario government as a senior analyst for the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. He's also a chartered professional accountant, and to relax, he plays the saxophone. Please join me in welcoming Professor Ferron. Please join Dr. Ferron.
Thank you very much, and it's such an honor and opportunity to see not only so many familiar faces, but also to see so many incredible colleagues, both from Canada and the Caribbean here, really defining what we have established as first as a concept, which was an institute that would form a mechanism and a foundation for collaboration and for research activities over the years. But I can tell you, so many of you who've now turned out to participate really give life and give breath to the initiative. With that as well, and respecting the formalities that's been had, and respecting as well our honored guests, and I understand that the minister may have to leave and may indeed in the middle of my remarks as well. But I want to thank you so much for being here and for supporting this initiative as well. I'm actually going to turn to some formal remarks. As many of you know, being a professor in the classroom, it means that I could go on for an hour, and I've been told that there's some restrictions on time, so I'll stick to my formal remarks and then make some informal remarks as I go along as well. Most importantly, though, I'd like to just to welcome everyone to this inaugural event. This is the inaugural event of the Canada Caribbean Institute, and as well, not only is it inaugural for the Institute, it's also inaugural for the Symposium. The Canada Caribbean Institute is a result of engaged dialogue as well as active collaboration. I believe the time that you'll spend together, I would really encourage you to take that spirit of engaged dialogue and active collaboration, meaning a collaboration that yields results, and the results that we've had already has been quite outstanding, both between Brock University and the University of the West Indies, as well as all the university and other participants involved. One of the items I can tell you is that the result of the Institute came about, yes, through a conversation, but there are a number of individuals who really should be recognized to being a part of that conversation. The Vice Chancellor, of course, was a part of that conversation, but as well, the Ambassador, Richard Bernal, was a part of that conversation. I should also recognize that Christine Amaret was a part of that conversation, all from the University of the West Indies at the time. Furthermore, we had James Vandigo, who was previously with Brock University, and myself. We envisioned the idea of an institute, and with the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, Her Excellency, the High Commission of Canada was there to witness the signing of the MOU. And similarly, we had a number of individuals, and particularly our Vice Provost, Camille Rutherford, who has been the champion at Brock University, moving the initiative ahead. But I think it's also to be witnessed that we have, I think, nearly 20 individuals or more from Canada here today who will be participating in the symposium, and not only from Brock University, but from Ryerson, from McMaster, from Brandon University. And what it says is that one of the vision, one of the ideas of the Institute was not only to be a relationship between Brock University and the University of the West Indies, but to be truly a Canada Caribbean Institute with several institutions from across Canada represented. And indeed, we're already achieving that, and I should congratulate all the colleagues from right across Canada who've also attended. And what you should also know about the relationship between Canada and the Caribbean is really exemplified by the trade relationship between Canada and Jamaica, by way of example. The exports to Jamaica from Canada reached about $125 million in 2017. Similarly, the exports of Jamaica to Canada reached about $130 million in 2017. And the trade patterns between Canada and the Caribbean is quite significant, with a long history, as was mentioned before. Another point that's to be noted is that there's about 750,000 individuals in Canada who can identify their background as Caribbean. And consequently, the relationship between Canada and the Caribbean is not only in terms of the dollar value of trade activities, but it's actually a relationship between peoples. And it's a relationship that is forged even in my own identity. I call myself a proud Canadian and an individual who's equally proud of my Jamaican roots. And one of the amazing items that we say in Canada is that you can find in so many different walks of significant contribution individuals from Caribbean descent. Indeed, one of our Governor Generals for Canada was of Caribbean roots as well. So the relationship between Canada and the Caribbean is significant, and the relationship in the future of the Caribbean and Canada is intertwined, not only in the context of history, but in terms of the context of the future as well. When we think about the role of the Institute, I believe, and that was made mention before, I'm an admirer of Sir Arthur Lewis, and one of the items to be noted from St. Lucia, he was born, but also a Nobel Prize winner in economics, and as well the first Vice Chancellor for the University of the West Indies. A core view on his part was the idea that the future was going to be defined by human capital. And in that context, human capital being defined very much by the work that all of you do on teaching and learning, the ideas of research, the idea of bringing research to be an impactful source of innovation for the betterment of society and social and economic development. Consequently, the fact that you are all here, you're actually engaging in his vision of the University of the West Indies, but in fact, his vision of humanity, that through research, through education, and that we can make significant contributions to the betterment of humanity as a whole. I think then the Institute represents a new form of engagement between Canada and the Caribbean. It represents a new form of possibilities where Canada and the Caribbean can collaborate on initiatives that define the future, not only the future of the economy, and I believe that there are significant topics that will be discussed at the symposium relating to trade, but also the future as it relates to culture, the future as it relates to the possibilities in terms of prosperities for individuals, the future as it relates to the environment, the future as it relates to gender issues. So many topics that we share and have dialogue around. Many of us can identify our relationship, whether family, whether through other ties to the Caribbean. And similarly, so many of you here in the Caribbean can also identify ties with Canada. And that's the purpose of the Institute, to identify those ties and to build on them. And as well, to ensure that we have a mechanism, an institution that is long-lasting. It's long-lasting not by the idea of the Institute, it's long-lasting by your efforts and your work. So I look forward to all the sessions across the symposium and all the work that will be done in the future. One item I would just like to make mention as I close is that one of the things that we thought about at Brock University was how would we make sure that we can contribute to the future of the Institute. So not only have we made commitment in terms of individual faculty and staff members, as well as make sure that we've seeded some of the activities and participation of our faculty and staff members. But we've also, and I'd like to take a moment to announce that we're also establishing a new scholarship that will contribute about just under or around $3,000 each year for students doing Canada Caribbean studies at the graduate level. So we look forward to seeing individuals through the Canada Caribbean Institute coming to Brock to do graduate work. And I was so pleased to be able to make a donation to start that funding, and for Brock University to match my donation to establish an endowment in the spirit of the Canada Caribbean Institute. Thank you so much. Thank you.
We have the privilege, as I've said earlier, to have had the active and strong support of our High Commissioner from the beginning, from the signing of the MOU, and here she's at the birth today. So she's been a wonderful, wonderful person to have, midwife, that's the word I was looking for. Yes, so we now invite her to bring remarks.
I indeed have the honor of representing Canada here in Jamaica, but also the Bahamas, Turks, Caicos, and Cayman Islands. It truly is an honor and a privilege, especially on exciting days such as this, where we get to see the already strong partnership that is the Canada-Caribbean relationship be made that much more innovative, refreshed, dynamic, as it deserves. And on behalf of my Canadian colleagues who work throughout the region as well, I want to congratulate you and thank you for this vision and for making it come to fruition in such a short time indeed. I'm just going to make three very small points about mobility, about inclusivity, and about innovation. We already know that there is so much traffic between Canada and the Caribbean, whether it's those diaspora who have made such incredible contributions in both senses, whether it's the Canadian tourists who seek refuge from our frosty winters, or the Caribbean students who look to continue their education or their lives with their families in Canada. Or whether it was those passengers on the federal Palm and Maple. Mobility has been at the heart of what we have as our relationship. And we want to look at how we can use the Institute and other tools such as faculty mobility and research mobility and student mobility to make sure that the next generation, the next iteration of thinking and doing around this relationship is a reality. Speaking of doing, it was Ambassador Bernal who once told me that we need to make sure that any MOUs are MODOs. And this is indeed what this institute and the symposium over the next couple of days will be. It's about making real and dynamic and productive those agreements and exchanges that we have with each other, not just here at UWI, but across the Caribbean as well. It's also very much about inclusivity, which I think are trademarks of the Caribbean region, but also of Canada, as you know. But inclusive in the fact that, yes, the foundational partners are the University of West Indies and Brock University, but it is about engaging Canadian institutions and thinkers and researchers from across the country to engage with their counterparts here in the Caribbean. So that inclusive approach is one that will allow that sustainability of this institute to be a place of thinking and doing. And also about innovation. Canada is known as the land of innovators. We have to think and do something during those long, dark winters. But we have excellent partners in innovation here in the Caribbean as well. And this is about innovating on the partnership that we already know and love. It's about making sure that it is refreshed, that it is dynamic, that it is forward-leaning. And I do know that based on what I've seen of the presentations over the next couple of days, yes, we will be talking about some traditional elements of our relationship, seasonal agricultural workers, looking at all the basic traditions of the relationships, trade as well, back from ackee and saltfish. But we'll be talking and learning about what we can do to define the next generation, the next iteration of this relationship. I will follow it closely no matter where I might be after this, because we know this relationship will thrive and the Institute will be a key cornerstone of that relationship. And once again, I congratulate you and I thank you for this initiative, and I'm so proud to be a very small part of it. Merci à tout le monde.